Hey guys, it's Haley, and in this video, it's not just me talking to you.
It's me, John.
John is a really great bassist. He's been playing for years and years and years.
Wow, I'm not that old.
He's ancient. And he happens to be my husband as well, so, you know,
Fun
finally
stuff.
convinced him to be in my video. So we are just going to be covering 4 really simple tips that you can use to sound like you actually know what you're doing on bass if you are currently a guitarist.
Yeah.
So this is gonna be if you have to pick up bass in a band or if you are recording. We know it's strung the same as a guitar, but there's some little things that when I started picking up bass, John was like,
It's definitely a different feel. It's so similar in concept, but like when you actually start playing it, I don't know, you quickly realize like, oh, this is a different instrument after all. Wow.
all guitarists
Who
are
knew?
amazing at bass. So we're gonna be covering just some little technique things. For me, when I first started playing bass, the sound of me pressing the strings to the fretboard was oddly like loud, and I could hear like string slide sounds a lot.
Yeah.
And I didn't quite know what I was doing with my right
A
hand.
little walking man.
Slap into bass. So yeah, we're just gonna jump into that and cover it. Anything else you'd like to say?
No, let's do it.
Woo! Okay, so the first thing that I would like to talk about is right hand.
The right hand.
The right hand.
There's no pick.
Or left hand, I guess.
Unless you
depending.
want to use a pick, which is acceptable.
Is it?
It is. I feel like there's a lot of great bassists who use picks, and there's a lot of haters on the internet who think you're stupid and not a real bassist if you only use your fingers. But I use a pick all the time. It's great.
Okay, so what would you say, like, can you give an example then of how you use your right hand? Do you normally play above? Is this called the bridge?
This is a decorative thing. It serves no purpose at all other than covering the pick guard. That was just a big thing in like the 50s and 60s. I actually use it a lot just to kind of like anchor my thumb or just to kind of rest something on there. I feel like that is a difficult thing, especially for guitarists transitioning from playing guitar to bass. Is the strings are a lot further apart. You got to travel a lot further, and so because of that, it's easier if you have something that you can kind of anchor yourself to that allows you to stabilize and be a little bit more smooth as you're moving from string to string. I would say the most important thing when you're just getting started and trying to do it is just try to rock it steady like an alternate pick, you know, like Jack Black in School of Rock, you know.
Yes.
Now, it's definitely not like a hard rule that you have to alternate pick every single time. In fact, a lot of times if I'm skipping strings, I'll stay on the same finger and I'll kind of almost do like a sweeping motion as I'm like moving back down the strings. For example, this is something that the bassist from Iron Maiden does a lot.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
see if you notice on the end there, I kind of slide it back. And that way it's like I'm able to hit all of those notes a little bit faster than if I was trying to alternate pick or alternate my fingers with each one. The other difficult thing that I think guitarists sometimes get confused by is you're not really plucking up on the string. If you do that, you're gonna get more of like that kind of slap sound. I almost think of it like I'm pushing through the string. So it's like something where you are, as you're pushing down and you're plucking on the string there, it's just kind of pushing past it, but just like you're just grazing it enough to where the string is making noise and you hear the notes, but you're not like getting stuck and pushing it down into the frets either. So you're just kind of pushing past it.
Next thing we're going to talk about is left hand technique. So I know there's a bit of muting going on.
Yeah, left hand is interesting compared to guitar because you are typically playing one note at a time. You can play chords in bass, but that's
Fancy.
yeah, it's not always what you need to do. So what you really want to think about is, okay, I'm playing one note. You would think that would be easier, but if you're playing a note and then you're accidentally letting some other string ring out while you're doing that, and you're not really careful with how you're fretting those notes, it's going to sound really muddy, it's going to sound really messy, and there's just going to be a lot of extra noise going on. So if I could give one main tip for left-hand technique with bass, it's getting comfortable kind of laying your fingers across all the strings, and then just kind of pressing down when you need to on a specific note, using all of your fingers as much as you can, because you have a lot of distance to travel on bass. But whenever you're not playing, or whenever you're playing a note on one string, trying to keep the other strings muted. And you can do that with both your right hand and your left hand, but leaving your fingers kind of dangled across, that will help to keep the strings silent and to help your notes and the things you're playing to sound more clear.
So next tip is going to be about thinking like a bassist, putting yourself in the bassist's mind. First thing, I know it's all about locking in with the drummer.
Yeah, that's definitely a crucial thing that you want to think about. Playing bass is how can you ground the band, and helping do that with the drummer is going to be key. Figuring out what is the kick pattern they're playing and try to match that. It doesn't have to be that 100% of the time, but staying at least close within that, and you can add accent fills and stuff here and there, but keeping up with the drummer is going to help everything to feel more succinct.
Yeah. And then I know that you use octaves a lot, and me and John, we used to play in a band together, and he still does sometimes. But you've talked about a lot of times he'll do a cool fill, and I'm like, whoa, that was so fancy. And then he's like, it's just the pentatonic scale.
It's just a pentatonic scale, or it's just an octave, Like, I like to think about bass fills as less of a, like, I'm playing a riff like you would on, I think like a drummer, I think about how can this fill the amount of space between like a couple chords, and do so in a way like a tom fill on the drums would happen. Or like with octaves, like you mentioned, like can I build the feeling of like this moment is building up. So like I'm playing a G, like bum 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 bum. I probably wasn't even in the same note as the G that was happening there, but you know what I mean.
I think it was.
Yeah, who knows? But if you're doing that, it helps to create this feeling of something is building, and all I did was just play the exact same note, but an octave up. So you're thinking a lot in terms of like, am I playing something complicated? Not necessarily, but am I playing something that fits within the song, fits within what the drummer's doing, and helps it all to maintain that same like level of dynamics and keep the timing along the way.
All right, so the last thing that I thought would be fun to talk about is John's favorite bass fill of all time.
Of all time. So much pressure.
Just a bass fill you use a lot, so we can actually really learn something, combine this right hand, left hand tips.
Yeah, so for me, I think bass can be really like crazy at times, but in general, you want to keep it simple. You want to play things that work well, add a little extra flair, but aren't, like there's not too much going on with it. So like one thing I do pretty commonly is just kind of a combination of pentatonic scales and octaves, just something that's like easy and you could do quickly. All right, so here is the lick or fill that I do pretty commonly, usually off of the 6 minor, and it's just kind of a variation of the pentatonic scale and uses some octaves in there, so it's pretty easy but sounds all right. So So the basic idea is I'm hitting that 6 minor and then immediately going into the fill, and it's basically just a variation of the pentatonic minor. So, but I'm just sliding around, playing it in a little bit of a different position and ending on a different note. So it would be like.
Last question is about gear. So I know some people plug in direct And you don't do that. You usually have some sort of little board set up. What do you recommend? What's your like top gear for bassists?
Yeah. I think if you had to narrow it down to essentials in pedals or whatever for a bassist, most people are going to say a compressor. I go back and forth. I kind of set a compressor on my amp and just don't touch it because I like to change the feel of the sound I'm creating just with how I'm playing. But a compressor pedal will help kind of even things out, and that's really nice. A lot of people will use distortion on basses, but my one tip is if you want to do that, figure out a way to split your signal. There's lots of pedals, lots of modelers out there that do that, but if you split your signal, you can keep a clean tone that is all the low end and stuff that doesn't distort well. When you distort low end, it gets super muddy and just doesn't sound great.
And then what brands do you recommend? I know you have the Aguilar.
Aguilar is a great brand. I used to have the Tone Hammer, but Aguilar makes fantastic bass gear, bass amps, bass pedals. Wow.
Whoa.
Interrupting me in my my time of glory. Aguilar is great. I use a TC Electronic amp head that I've had forever, and I love it. But I mean, there's a lot of great brands out there. Ampeg is like the classic if you wanted like a classic bass amp, so yeah, lots of good stuff.
Okay guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you, John.
Yeah, it was fun. Camera's scary, but I think it went all right.
You killed it. I've been trying to convince John to be in my videos for like a year, so.
And here I am.
Here he is. This is big for me, guys. But I hope this helps you learn if you are wanting to pick up bass or just learn it for a few gigs or recording. So thanks so much for watching.